Before we begin our slow journey through the dusty echoes of the American Wild West, take a moment to let your shoulders relax. If you enjoy drifting through forgotten worlds, where history breathes through worn boots and sun-scorched wood, we invite you to subscribe to Medieval Nocturnes. We create whispered tales from lost times to help you rest, reflect, and vanish into sleep. Now, dim the lantern, let the quiet settle, and allow yourself to enter a place where the rules were few and survival was more about instincts than maps. Welcome to the Wild West. The sun doesn't rise gently out here. It slams into the sky with heat and intent. The air smells like horse sweat, old rope, and something faintly metallic, maybe blood, maybe rust. Your clothes aren't pressed, your boots aren't polished, and your smile, if you have one, should be brief and vague. Cleanliness in this world isn't admired, it's suspicious. If you're too clean, you've either just arrived or never stayed long enough to understand why nobody trusts a polished boot. Dirt is protection. Grit is camouflage. Let's talk about what you wear. A brand new coat with sharp edges and brass buttons makes you a target. It says you have money, or worse, that you still think rules apply. People out here don't respect fashion, they respect survival. Your coat should smell like damp tobacco, and your shirt, preferably brown or gray, should be wrinkled, maybe patched, maybe slightly torn. If you look like someone who slept behind a barn and eaten beans with a knife, you'll blend in just fine. Your hat is your badge of intent. Too small, and you'll look like a child lost at a grown-up poker game. Too big, and you're overcompensating. Find something weather-worn with a brim that's seen both rain and bullets. A good hat tells people you've seen things. It also keeps the sun off your neck and the judgment off your back. Accessories, 1 or 2, maybe a rusted knife, a flask with questionable liquid, or a bandana tied like you didn't think about it. If it looks like you're trying, you're already failing. Posture matters. Don't walk too fast, don't smile too much. Out here, charisma gets confused with con artistry, and lingering eye contact is a challenge. Nod instead of speak. Shrug instead of explain. If someone asks where you're from, say, far enough. If they ask where you're going, say, not sure yet. The less they know, the less they can plan. And everyone out here is planning something. You might think talking your way through trouble is a good idea, but in the Wild West, silence buys more peace than clever words. Here, conversation is less about sharing and more about measuring. Every sentence is a small gamble, every glance a wager. Confidence is admired, but only in trace amounts. Lay it on too thick, and someone will call your bluff just to see how fast you bleed. If someone asks, "Can you shoot?" you don't nod, you don't brag, you murmur a bit. Even if your name is legend in 5 counties, play it down. No one respects a loudmouth with a story. They respect the man who sips his drink, watches the room, and doesn't flinch when the piano stops mid-song. This world isn't kind to those who like to hear themselves talk. Here, humility isn't virtue, it's armor. Now, let's talk about eyes. The most dangerous mistake you can make in any saloon or camp is staring. Don't stare at the outlaw with the scar. Don't stare at the man with 3 fingers and no expression. And above all, don't stare at the horse, not even a little. In the Wild West, a man's horse is sacred, ranking just below his gun and just above his mother. Looking at it too long is either an insult or a proposal. Neither ends well. You may be tempted to compliment someone's stallion. Don't. You may be tempted to pat it. Really don't. You may. If your brain momentarily leaves your body, feel the urge to wink at a particularly handsome steed. If you do, write a quick goodbye letter and start digging your own grave. The safest horse policy is this: ignore it completely. Pretend it's part of the landscape. Social graces out here are minimal and blunt. Don't offer to buy drinks unless you're prepared to buy them all night. Don't ask questions unless you're ready for silence or steel. The safest things to say in the Wild West are nice weather, decent beans, and not looking for trouble. Stick to those, and you might get to enjoy your coffee while it's still hot. Ah yes, coffee, the universal signal that someone has a pulse and a shred of hope left. It tastes like charred sorrow and bitter earth, but it keeps you awake, which is half the battle. The other half is leaving the saloon the same way you entered, quietly, without a limp, and without anyone remembering your name. Out here, anonymity is your best friend. Because the second people start remembering you, they start building expectations, or worse, they start digging up reasons to test your reputation. Let's say you've made it through your first saloon visit without insult, injury, or invitation to a duel. Good. Now comes the hard part: picking a town. Not every dusty dot on the map is a place you want to settle, and out here, your choice of settlement can mean the difference between a quiet life and being buried next to a poker table with a bullet in your back. Avoid any town that describes itself as lively. That's code for 3 gunfights a day and funerals by dinner. If the welcome sign has more bullet holes than letters, ride on. And if the town's main landmark is a vulture perched on a signpost, congratulations, you've found the sort of place where the local doctor doubles as a gravedigger. Move along. The town you want is unimpressive, dull, a place so forgettable that even the sheriff naps through the afternoon. Look for faded signs, unpaved streets, and general stores that sell the same 3 things: beans, bullets, and mild distrust. A town where the bartender grunts more than he talks, and where the church bells haven't rung in months. That's safety, Western style, apathy wrapped in dust. But maybe you crave opportunity. Maybe you hear the call of a boomtown, freshly minted with gold rush fever and enough ambition to drown a mule. Be warned. In those places, fortunes rise fast and corpses rise faster. Population doubles every week, and so do the lies, the scams, and the body count. The roads are muddy, the whiskey is weak, and everyone's either selling something or stealing something. You might strike it rich, sure, but you'll likely strike something far more fatal first. Now, maybe you're thinking of going civilized, somewhere with a schoolhouse, a church, maybe even a post office. Don't let the lace curtains fool you. The mayor's probably crooked, the sheriff's been shot more than once this month, and the preacher's running a poker game in the back of the sanctuary. There's no such thing as a safe town in the Wild West, just towns where you die slower. Before settling anywhere, ask yourself a few basic questions. Are there more graves than houses? Do locals make eye contact, or do they reach for something when you walk in? Does the general store sell coffins right next to the canned beans? If the answer to any of those is yes, it's time to saddle up and keep riding. Because, in the Wild West, the best town isn't the one with the nicest hotel or the prettiest girls. It's the one where no one notices you, where no one asks what you're running from, and most importantly, where no one mistakes you for the guy they swore to kill after a bad hand of cards last winter. You might assume that once you've picked a town and found a roof, sleep would come easy. But in the Wild West, sleep is more like a dangerous hobby than a basic human need. It's not about rest, it's about risk management. Close your eyes too long, and you might wake up with fewer teeth, less gear, or not at all. Your sleep options are as follows. Option 1. The saloon floor. It's a classic, historic, even you'll find company there. 3 unconscious drifters, and a dog no one's sure is breathing. The floor is sticky, the air is thick, and if you're lucky, the rats will wait until dawn to start negotiating territory. Still, it's free, and it's got a roof, technically. Option 2. The boarding house. This is where folks go when they want a semblance of structure. You'll get a cot, probably shared walls, and maybe a door that almost locks. The sheets might be clean, or they might be camouflage for lice. Either way, don't be fooled by the wallpaper. Every boarding house has at least one professional snorer, one night screamer, and a few people who think knives are conversational tools. It's safer than outside, marginally. Option 3. The great outdoors. Sleeping under the stars sounds romantic until it rains. The wind howls, and coyotes decide your boots smell interesting. You'll wake up covered in dew dust, or something that was once alive. But, at least in the wild, no one stabs you for snoring too loud, unless it's a prospector who hasn't slept in 3 days and thinks you're a ghost. Out here, your best bet is to sleep like a hunted animal, lightly, often, and never fully. Nap behind barrels, lean against your horse, doze with one eye open and your hand near a weapon, and never, ever sleep with your back to a wall. That's how you get robbed, rolled, or hugged by someone you didn't see coming. If someone whispers your name while you're half asleep, don't respond. It's either a hallucination, a trick, or someone about to sell you cursed land. Best to stay quiet and pretend you're already dead. Most threats prefer easier targets. The golden rule: sleep in shifts, snooze in daylight, and treat nighttime like the enemy it often is. And if you must sleep indoors, pick the room furthest from the window and closest to the exit, just in case your peaceful night turns into a sprinting morning. Because in the Wild West, the only thing more dangerous than staying awake is letting your guard down for too long. Dreams come second, survival comes first, and if you manage to make it through the night with all your gear, all your limbs, and your reputation intact, you've already won more than most. If there's one thing you'll learn fast out here, it's that water can't be trusted. In the Wild West, water is a riddle wrapped in mud, sweat, and disease. You might think a creek is a gift from heaven, but drink from the wrong one, and you'll be praying for a second chance with a stomach that's turned against you and a fever that thinks it's fireworks. Most water sources are community gathering spots, not just for cowboys, but for their horses, cattle, dogs, bandits, and whatever unfortunate souls haven't yet died from it. Every time you dip your cup into that stream, you're inviting a dozen strangers and their questionable hygiene into your digestive system. It may look clear, but so does a mirror, and you wouldn't drink from that either. Boiling it is smart. Boiling it is survival. But boiling requires fire, a pot, time, and no one trying to rob you mid-boil, which means most people don't. They take their chances. They drink it fast, cross their fingers, and hope their insides are too stubborn to die. That's not hygiene. That's faith with consequences. If you're feeling fancy, you might consider whiskey instead. It won't hydrate you, and it will probably dehydrate you faster than a desert breeze. But at least it burns going down. That burn. That's not flavor. That's denial, dressed in oak. And let's be honest, it feels better when you inevitably find out the beans were undercooked. Rainwater is the dream, pure, unbothered, and straight from the sky. But rain doesn't come when you need it. When it does, it comes all at once, usually during dinner, sweeping away your tent, your mule, and your last ounce of dignity. If you manage to catch some in a bucket, congratulations. Just check for squirrels doing the backstroke before drinking it. Some towns have wells, emphasis on some, emphasis again on had. Wells go dry. Wells collapse. And sometimes, if a land dispute gets heated enough, they get poisoned, accidentally, or on purpose. If someone offers you a cool cup of well water, ask how many people drank it yesterday, and how many of them are still walking. In short, water isn't your friend. It's a charming liar with a smile and a grudge. It'll lure you in with promises of refreshment, then leave you curled around a cactus, regretting every decision that brought you to this moment. Carry what you can, boil what you find, and drink with suspicion, always. Because in the Wild West, thirst is a fact, but dying of optimism is a choice, and a very wet, very messy one at that. Let's talk about food. If you came to the Wild West expecting hearty meals, robust flavors, and grandma's recipes, you've been misled by poetry and paintings. Out here, food isn't made for joy. It's made for not dying. That's the bar. And even then, it's hit or miss. The food pyramid. Throw it out. Your menu consists of 4 basic items: beans, biscuits, bacon, and false hope. Beans are the staple. Pinto, black, sometimes just labeled edible. They're cooked in a pot older than anyone alive and stirred with whatever wasn't nailed down. They come seasoned with ash, maybe a whisper of onion, and the occasional uninvited bug. They're filling, they're fibrous, and they'll keep your digestive system humming like a nervous locomotive. Biscuits are next, though calling them biscuits is generous. These are more like edible building materials, dense, dry, and ideal for stopping bullets or breaking teeth. Cowboys have been known to use them as throwing weapons. Others soak them in coffee until they soften into a texture best described as mournful. If you're lucky, they're warm. If not, they double as paperweights and defense tools. Then there's bacon, salty, greasy, and revered like a treasure map. Bacon is the crown jewel of frontier cuisine. It's the one thing that makes people forget they're eating the same meal for the 7th day in a row. A few strips of questionable pork fat can transform beans into a celebration, or at least a distraction, and that's good enough. But nothing captures the soul of frontier dining like stew. Glorious, it bubbles endlessly over open flames, passed from pot to pot, meal to meal, sometimes week to week. What's in it? Don't ask, just eat. If it crunches, chew carefully. If it moves, pretend it didn't. The rules of stew are simple. Don't question it, and don't look too closely. You survive stew. You don't savor it. Dessert. That's adorable. The closest thing to dessert is hardtack dipped in lukewarm water, or the occasional molasses if you've got a boot to trade. Pies exist only in rumors and assassination plots. If someone offers you pie, assume they're either incredibly rich or very, very dangerous. And then there's the coffee. Not a beverage, a liquid threat. It's blacker than a starless night, thicker than melted saddle wax, and brewed in pots that haven't seen soap since the war. But it works. It kicks you awake. clears your sinuses, and temporarily makes you believe that survival is still possible. So you eat, not because it tastes good, but because your body needs something to burn as you ride, walk, or hide from trouble. The food won't nourish your soul, but it might keep it from leaving your body too soon. Now let's talk about your horse. This isn't just transportation. It's your roommate, your getaway vehicle, your therapist, and the only living thing out here with a better survival instinct than you. In fact, if you want to make it past next week, trust your horse more than your instincts, especially when your instincts are saying, "Let's ride into that canyon at sunset." What could go wrong? Your horse, unlike you, doesn't romanticize scenery. It hears danger before it appears, feels vibrations you can't, and knows when a rustle isn't just wind. If your horse suddenly stops mid-stride, it's not being stubborn, it's warning you. If it turns around on its own, don't argue. Follow it. It's not dramatic, it's experienced. And if your horse throws you for seemingly no reason, assume there was a very good reason. Probably one involving a hidden snake, a lurking bandit, or a broken bridge. You'll find out what it was later, from a safer distance, ideally while you're not airborne. Now, treat your horse right. Feed it well. Oats are ideal. An apple earns you a raised eyebrow of respect. Don't expect affection. This isn't a puppy. It's a 1,200-pound judgment machine with hooves. It won't cuddle, it won't play fetch, and it certainly won't take kindly to being called snickerdoodle. Name it something serious, dustbite, widowmaker, Jeff, something with gravitas, something that sounds like it's seen things and isn't afraid of ghosts. Maintenance is not optional. Brush it, check its hooves, talk to it occasionally, not because it likes your company, but because it needs to know you're not a complete idiot. Trust is a two-way street, and your horse is watching for potholes. If it starts side-eyeing you, you've done something wrong, possibly multiple things. Never forget, your horse can get you across mountains, through rivers, and into places no sane man would go. It will save your life more often than your gun, but it has limits. Don't push it past exhaustion. Don't ride it downhill like a lunatic. And don't assume it'll always forgive you for poor decisions. This isn't a loyal hound. This is a professional carrying a tourist. Act accordingly. If there's one rule that holds true from the dusty plains to the rocky trails, it's this: respect the beast that carries you. Because when everything else falls apart, the saloon erupts in chaos. Your bedroll's been stolen, and the law's asking too many questions. Your horse might be the only reason you make it to the next sunrise. So feed it, trust it, name it wisely, and listen when it tells you to turn around. Let's move on to the matter of weapons. In the Wild West, being unarmed is a louder announcement than yelling, "I'm harmless," in a room full of outlaws. You don't necessarily need to be a marksman, but you do need to look like someone who might be, because appearances keep you alive long before accuracy does. A pistol is the gold standard, not a polished, ivory-handled showpiece. Those are for gamblers and fools. No, you want a pistol that looks like it's survived a bar fight, a sandstorm, and 2 decades of regret. Scratched, dented, maybe missing a screw. Something that tells people, "I've seen trouble, and I'm not afraid to make more." And how you wear it matters. Let it hang low and loose, a little crooked, like it belongs there. If you strap it on like it's your first communion gift, everyone will know it and adjust their robbery plans accordingly. This isn't about intimidation. It's about camouflage. You're blending into a violent world by looking just violent enough. Can T afford a gun? Carry a knife? Rust is fine. Rust is good, it says. I've used this, and I don't clean it. Decorative knives are suspicious. Folding knives are theatrical. What you want is something you can flick open and stare at while pretending to remember something traumatic. Doesn't matter what, just look like you've seen things. Still broke, time to improvise. A sharpened spoon, a rock in a sock, a stick with nails. If it looks like you could swing it during a disagreement and leave a mark, it qualifies. Bonus points if it's homemade. Extra bonus points if it looks unstable. People respect unpredictable danger more than competence. It's a strange truth, but it's survived more than a few gunfights. But here's the most important part. Don't use it unless you have to. A weapon in the Wild West is less about action and more about suggestion. It ends conversations. It shortens negotiations. It tells people there are easier targets elsewhere. That's its real purpose. And if the time comes to actually pull it, don't hesitate, because nothing is more fatal than drawing a weapon and realizing it's jammed, unloaded, or worse, unfamiliar. Practice. Check your tools. Know which end is which. The guy who forgets. He ends up as a cautionary tale buried near the outhouse. Because out here, looking dangerous keeps you safe. Acting dangerous gets you killed. And knowing when to do neither. That's the real trick. Now that you're armed and reasonably clothed in dust and skepticism, let's talk about trust, specifically, how little of it you should have. Out here, trust is rarer than clean water, and often more dangerous. A smile could be hospitality or a distraction. A handshake might seal a deal, or signal your pockets are about to be emptied. In the Wild West, everyone has a story, and most of them are lies polished smooth from overuse. Pay attention to names. If someone introduces themselves as Doc, Dutch, or Dusty, be cautious. These aren't just nicknames. They're red flags with saddlebags. Let's start with Doc. He might have once owned a medical book. He may have pulled a bullet from someone's leg. But odds are, he's just the man with the steadiest hands when everyone else is too drunk to see straight. If he offers you whiskey before he offers a diagnosis, prepare to lose something, possibly a limb, definitely your dignity. Then there's Dutch. He's not Dutch. He doesn't speak Dutch. No one knows why he's called Dutch, but he always has a plan, and that plan usually ends with you in a barn, hiding from angry people, while Dutch rides off with your loot, your horse, and a surprisingly heartfelt apology. Never follow Dutch, especially if he begins a sentence with, "Here's what we're going to do." That sentence has been the prologue to many shallow graves. Finally, Dusty. He's the friendly one, too friendly. He knows every trail, every shortcut, and every sheriff's blind spot. He'll share his fire, split his beans, and offer to watch your gear while you sleep. When you wake up, he'll be gone, with your boots, your food, and a handwritten note that just says, "Thanks." You won't even be mad. He's that charming. The point is, out here, nicknames are currency, and anyone named Whiskey Pete, One-Eyed Lou, or Rattlesnake Joe either has a criminal record or is actively expanding one. Trust people with full names, and be especially wary of the ones who laugh a little too hard, never blink, or carry 2 pistols but no canteen. If someone insists they're honest, they're not. If someone says, "You can trust me," you absolutely can't. The most reliable person you'll meet is the one who says very little, watches a lot, and leaves before sunrise without taking anything that wasn't his. That person understands the code of the West. Be useful, be quiet, and never give anyone a reason to remember your face. So when Doc offers to fix your leg, Dutch offers to make you rich, and Dusty offers to watch your mule, smile, nod, and walk away slowly. The Wild West isn't built on trust. It's built on quiet calculations, and knowing when someone's kindness is just the first step in a long and expensive con. By now, you've probably realized that life in the Wild West is a constant negotiation between danger and disguise. But nowhere is that balance more precarious than in the saloon. These wooden havens are equal parts shelter, stage, and storm. You don't walk into one, you enter like you're expecting betrayal. Because if you're not, betrayal will feel very personal. Inside, the rules shift. The loudest man isn't always the most dangerous. Often, he's the first to go. He's standing on a chair, telling a story about how he once fought 3 outlaws, a bear and a dust devil, all before breakfast. No one believes him, and more importantly, no one respects him. He's entertainment, not threat. The one you watch is the man in the corner. The one who's been nursing the same drink for an hour. He doesn't talk. He doesn't blink. That man has survived 5 gunfights, 3 ambushes, and 1 unfortunate marriage. He's not quiet because he's shy. He's quiet because words are ammunition, and he's saving his for when it counts. If you accidentally lock eyes with him, apologize with a nod and break contact. Slowly, if he nods back, you live. If he doesn't, well, it's been nice knowing you. The key to survival in a saloon is not looking for stories, it's avoiding becoming one. Also, remember that silence is not peace, it's preparation. That table full of ranch hands, playing cards in silence. They're not mellow, they're tired, suspicious, and halfway to pulling their revolvers. That couple in the corner, whispering sweet nothings. She's probably distracting you while he counts how many bullets are in your belt. Nothing in a saloon is what it seems. Politeness is another tricky matter. Just because a man tips his hat and says ma'am doesn't mean he won't shoot you if you insult his boots. Civility out here is more of a temporary ceasefire than a reflection of kindness. People say please just before they draw, and they say thank you after the smoke clears. If someone turns down a drink, nods without smiling, and leaves his hat on indoors, give him space. He's not being rude. He's being careful. And if you challenge him to anything, cards, dice, small talk, you're volunteering for a very short lesson in regret. The quiet ones aren't here to make friends. They're here to sit in peace, watch for trouble, and leave without blood on their boots. If they do draw their gun, it'll be fast, final, and deeply unfair, because they've already calculated every step between their stool and the door. You're just realizing there's a door. So in the saloon, speak softly, drink slowly, and never, ever ask questions you don't want answered. There's something almost sacred about leaving a town in the Wild West. Not the ceremony, but the silence. Because out here, departure is an art. You don't shout your goodbyes. You don't raise your glass and ride off into the sunset while music swells in the background. That kind of dramatic exit might look good in a dime novel, but in real life, it gets you followed, or worse, remembered. A clean exit means no lingering, no speeches, and no sudden generosity. You settle your tab the night before. You pack your gear before dawn, and you leave behind anything noisy, sentimental, or flammable. That includes old letters, broken friendships, and half-finished arguments. If you must say goodbye, keep it vague. Got business east is a favorite. It suggests purpose without details. It could mean cattle, family, revenge, or just a powerful need to not be shot at breakfast. The signs that it's time to leave come quietly. Maybe the piano stops playing when you walk into the saloon. Maybe the sheriff asks where you're from again, like he's testing your answer. Or maybe someone starts flipping a coin and staring at your boots like he's trying to remember if you're the man he swore to kill last winter. When that happens, don't wait for it to escalate. Ride. The secret to survival isn't bravery, it's timing. Loud men with loud stories tend to stick around too long. They confuse fame with safety. They carve their names into tables, flirt with the mayor's wife, and think the world owes them a round of applause. They die before 40, usually in front of a crowd. The wise ones, those with weathered hats and quiet horses, they vanish. They leave halfway through a drink, mid-conversation, mid-chicken, and the town spends the next 3 days wondering where they went and if they should follow. They shouldn't. Reputation is heavy. It makes you slower, more noticeable, and harder to bury under a new name. If you must build a legacy, do it by being the man no one saw coming and everyone regrets crossing. Otherwise, be forgettable, ghost-like. Let your shadow be the only thing anyone remembers, if they remember anything at all. Out here, you don't win by standing tall. You win by slipping away before anyone realizes they should have stopped you. So when the air gets tight, when your drink doesn't taste right, or when someone calls you by a name you never gave them, ride and don't look back. The West doesn't reward nostalgia. It rewards momentum. And a man riding away in silence is safer than one giving a speech on loyalty to people already drawing straws. If you're still under the impression that being a legend in the Wild West is a good idea, let's gently set that thought down and bury it deep. The truth is, everyone wants to be remembered until they realize how legends usually end, with their name on a wanted poster, a bullet in their back, or a tombstone someone else paid for. The problem with fame out here is that it paints a target on your chest, and there's no shortage of young fools looking to make a name for themselves by putting you down. You could have shot a can off a fence once, and next thing you know, someone's telling the story in a saloon, exaggerating it into a tale of sharpshooting heroism. Now every kid with a revolver wants to test you before he's old enough to shave. Every nickname becomes a challenge. Quickhand Joe, One-Eyed Frank, the Widowmaker. They sound cool until someone mutters them through a clenched jaw at the far end of a poker table. Once you've got a reputation, you've got a schedule, and everyone's penciling you in for a showdown. But the man who survives, the one who reaches old age with all his fingers and most of his teeth, is the one no one remembers. He never robbed a bank. He never saved a town. He never caused a scene. He rode in, rode out, and left behind nothing but footprints and maybe a few suspicious glances. He's the man who doesn't sit at the center of the saloon. He sits near the exit. He doesn't wear flashy clothes or spin his pistol like a circus act. He wears browns, grays, dust, clothes that forgettable people wear. Because forgettable people don't get shot at sunrise. Being quiet isn't weakness, it's strategy. Talkers draw trouble. Quiet men let it pass by like a dust storm, eyes low, boots steady. Glory fades fast, but caution keeps breathing. Let others chase dramatic deaths and exaggerated headlines. Let them pose dramatically in the sunset while monologuing about justice. You'll be 3 towns over by then, sipping coffee that doesn't taste like tension, and sleeping in a bed that doesn't have your name carved into it. Because that's the secret. In the Wild West, you don't survive by being impressive. You survive by being uninteresting. Be competent, be polite, be gone before anyone gets curious. And if someone asks where you're from, shrugged, say nowhere much. If they ask about your past, change the subject to the weather, because it's probably trying to kill you anyway. Better to be thought dull and walk away than be remembered and hunted down. Let's turn now to the subject of work, because unless you're planning to live on beans and luck alone, you'll need a job. And in the Wild West, employment is a loose concept. No resumes, no interviews, just sweat, bruises, and the understanding that your boss may one day vanish without paying you, or worse, expect you to vanish someone else. The most honest work you'll find is on a ranch. It pays little, breaks your back, and ages you twice as fast, but at least the cattle don't lie. You'll rise before the sun, sleep after it's gone, and spend your days shoveling, herding, or being yelled at by a man named Buck, who's somehow both 30 and 70 at the same time. He's got one eye, one tooth, and 3 ex-wives, and he'll teach you more about life in a week than school ever did. If you prefer solitude, there's trapping. It's just you, the wilderness, and animals who are smarter than they look. It pays well in pelts, but you'll spend days freezing in silence, and nights wondering whether that noise was a bear, a bandit, or your own hunger hallucinating. It's not for the faint of heart or the faint of nose. Then there's mining. Technically a job, realistically a punishment. You go in a man, you come out a rumor. The air is thick, the light's thin, and the gold is always just a little deeper than your sanity can reach. Still, people do it. Hope has a powerful pull, even when it's buried beneath rock and bad odds. Want something more mobile? Try being a stagecoach guard. You get to ride, you get to shoot, and you get to worry constantly about when the next ambush is coming. The pay is decent, the risks are high, and the appreciation is non-existent. But hey, you get a front row seat to every dusty corner of the territory. Just make sure your will is up to date. Then there's bounty hunting, not a job, really, a lifestyle. You chase men who've made poor choices while making some of your own. It pays well, sometimes, if the wanted poster is accurate, if the sheriff pays up, if the outlaw doesn't have friends. Big ifs, and once you start, you better keep moving, because someone, somewhere, is always willing to flip the script and collect on you. Or maybe you're thinking of something less dangerous, like bartending, serving drinks, breaking up fights, listening to stories that never end well. It seems safe until you realize that every night you're standing in the splash zone of someone else's worst decision. The bar rail is the front line of emotional warfare, and you're the one holding the mop. Out here, work is less about what you want to do and more about what you're willing to survive doing, and the only real job security being too useful to shoot and just boring enough to keep around. Now that you've settled into some kind of job, be it shoveling manure, chasing fugitives, or pouring whiskey into bad decisions, it's time to learn the unofficial rulebook of frontier etiquette. Not the kind written in fancy Eastern papers, but the kind carved quietly into the daily rhythm of survival. Out here, good manners aren't about being proper. They're about staying alive. Rule 1: don't stare. This seems easy until you realize how many curious, strange, and downright alarming people wander into a Western town. A man with a wooden leg and a wolf on a leash. Look away. A woman with a scar running from eyebrow to collarbone, calmly cleaning her revolver. Look away, faster. Curiosity kills more folks than cholera out here. Not immediately, but eventually. Because in the West, people assume that if you're looking too long, you're planning something. And no one wants to be planned for. Rule 2. Never touch another man's hat. It doesn't matter if it's on a rack, a peg, or his head, especially his head. That hat isn't just fabric. It's pride, privacy, and sometimes the only shield between a man's thoughts and the cruel sun. Touching it is like insulting his honor and hygiene at the same time. Many a bar fight has begun with a misplaced hand and ended with a busted nose and a lifelong grudge. Rule 3. Don't ask personal questions. Ever. You meet a stranger named Red with a scar on his jaw and a twitchy left eye. You don't ask, how'd that happen? You say, nice weather, and move on. Everyone out here is running from something. Debt, death, or disappointment. If they wanted to talk about it, they'd still be back east, writing poetry. Rule 4. If someone buys you a drink, either accept it politely or decline it firmly. Don't overthink it, and never, under any circumstances, offer to pay them back. That implies they can't afford their own kindness. And out here, pride has a quicker trigger than poverty. A free drink is a gesture. Accept it as such. Then drink it like it might be your last, because it could be. Rule 5. Always tip the piano player, even if he's bad. Especially if he's bad. Because a saloon without music is just a room full of bad moods looking for a reason to explode. The pianist keeps the tension soft and the gamblers distracted. His fingers might be the only thing keeping 6 angry men from noticing each other's tells. Show respect, drop a coin, and keep the peace. And Rule 6, the golden rule, mind your own business. If you hear shouting, look the other way. If you hear gunfire, hit the floor. If you hear weeping, keep walking. Empathy is a beautiful thing, but out here, it's a fast road to involvement. And involvement, more often than not, ends with you lying in the dirt, wondering why you didn't just stay quiet. You've made it this far, which means you're either lucky, careful, or too stubborn to die. Maybe all 3. But there's one more thing to learn before you start thinking of yourself as a seasoned frontier survivor. How to sleep. Not how to fall asleep. That part comes easy after 14 hours of labor, 2 near-death encounters, and 1 bad stew. No, what you need to master is how to sleep without dying in the process. Because in the Wild West, sleep isn't rest, it's a negotiation with your surroundings. Start with your back. Never sleep flat on it. That makes you a target and a silhouette. You want to sleep low, curled, with your hat over your face and your hand near your weapon. Not because you expect trouble, but because trouble doesn't RSVP. If you're in a town, pick the floor over the bed. Sounds strange, but beds squeak, floors creak, and both can betray you. If you must sleep on a bed, lie diagonally. That way, you're not where someone expects you to be if they burst through the door with less than noble intentions. Also, keep your boots on. Yes, even when sleeping. Taking off your boots is how you tell the universe, I trust tonight. And trust is a luxury you can't afford. Out on the trail, never camp in the same spot twice. That's how you get tracked. Don't light a big fire unless you're sure you're alone, and even then, keep it low. A full blaze attracts warmth seekers. Some just want to share the heat. Others want your gear. Either way, your night gets complicated. Always sleep upwind of your horse. If it gets spooked, you'll hear it first. Your horse is your early warning system, your burglar alarm, and occasionally your blunt weapon. Tie it loosely, but not so loose it wanders off with your saddle in the middle of the night. And when it rains, which it will, you'll learn fast that dry ground is a cruel myth. Everything leaks, everything floods. Even your coat becomes a sponge. The trick isn't staying dry, it's staying functional. Sleep in layers. Pack your gear under you, and accept that waking up damp is a win compared to not waking up at all. Now let's talk about sounds. Coyotes, owls, wind, their background noise. Bandits don't announce themselves with howls. They come with silence, or too much quiet, or a single misplaced footstep that doesn't match the rhythm of the wilderness. That's what you listen for. You'll sleep in stages, a few hours here, an hour there. You won't dream much, and when you do, it'll be about bacon, baths, or beds that don't try to kill you. But sleep, you must, because without it, you'll get sloppy. And in the West, sloppy is just another word for soon to be dead. So, close your eyes, just one at a time. Let's take a moment to talk about the weather. Not the polite kind of conversation that happens when you're bored, but the kind that could kill you if you don't listen carefully. Because in the Wild West, the weather isn't just something you deal with, it's a character in your life. A loud, moody, unpredictable character with a grudge and a tendency to throw tantrums. The sun isn't your friend. It's not warming. It's not gentle. It doesn't gently tan your skin. It peels it off in layers. You'll ride under a sky so clear and blue it feels endless, but that's just a setup. A few hours in the saddle, and your lips will crack, your eyes will burn, and the sweat will dry before it has a chance to cool you. Shade is more valuable than gold. A single tree can feel like a chapel. A wide-brimmed hat becomes your best defense, followed closely by staying the hell still between noon and 3. Then comes the wind. Constant, muttering, carrying dust in ways that make it feel personal. It doesn't just blow, it scours. It polishes bones and ruins moods. It'll sneak into your gear, your food, your eyes. Some days, it feels like it's whispering. Other days, it screams. The wind doesn't respect schedules or shelters. It knows where your weak spots are and will push until you break. And then there's the rain. When it comes, it doesn't trickle. It attacks. Thunder cracks like rifle fire. Lightning slices the sky into pieces, and the dirt beneath your boots turns instantly to betrayal. Trails vanish. Rivers swell without warning. That cozy little ditch you camped in. Now it's a fast-moving stream with all your supplies heading toward Mexico. You might think snow would be better, peaceful, quiet, even pretty, and it is, for about 10 minutes. Then your fingers stop working. Your horse starts limping. Your breath freezes in your mustache, and your canteen lid won't twist off because it's iced shut. Snow doesn't kill you fast. It lets you drift into sleep, into stillness, and then just stops you. But the worst is when the weather shifts without warning. Clear skies that turn to storm. Warm breezes that carry frost. The West doesn't play fair, and it doesn't owe you consistency. You'll learn to smell changes in the air, to listen for birds going silent, to feel the shift in your bones before the clouds even gather. Because out here, you're not living in the weather. You're surviving with it, sometimes despite it. You'll learn to sleep through windstorms and eat during hail. You'll curse the sun, beg the rain, and celebrate a cool breeze like it's a holiday. The weather isn't your backdrop, it's your opponent, and you don't beat it, You just learn how to last longer than the next guy. Now that you're learning to read the sky like a telegram from nature itself, let's talk about another silent threat: disease. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind that arrives with a fever and a final gasp. No, this is the kind that creeps in, stays quiet, and makes you miserable in ways only old blankets and warm whiskey can pretend to fix. You see, in the Wild West, hygiene is more theory than practice. Bathing isn't routine, it's an event, a rare, splashy, soapless occasion, usually celebrated once a month. Or whenever you start to lose social privileges, like people sitting near you. Water is too precious to waste on luxury, and soap is a treasure passed around like gossip. If you manage to find a full bar, guard it like gold. And speaking of gold, mining camps are basically petri dishes with pickaxes. A single cough can spread faster than a barroom rumor. Same with rail camps, cattle drives, and anywhere men share more germs than space. There are no doctors, only men with opinions and rusty tools. Sawbones is not a nickname, it's a job description. Typhoid, dysentery, cholera, they all sound distant and historical now, but back then they were close companions. A bad well or a lazy cook could doom an entire settlement. You might not know what you caught, only that it hits fast, keeps you in the dirt, and steals your strength until even your boots feel too heavy to lift. The smartest cowboys drank from moving streams, boiled water, if they had the patience, and refused food from anyone who scratched themselves too often. The less smart ones trusted stew that smelled mostly fine and wondered why their insides turned to regret a few hours later. And then there were the infections, little things, like a cut from barbed wire or a splinter from a broken wagon. If you didn't clean it, didn't wrap it, didn't pray over it with enough alcohol, it grew red, angry, and personal. You'd wake up with a fever, or worse, not wake up at all. You carried your medicine in a flask. Whiskey wasn't just for pain, it was for cleansing, numbing, bargaining. If you were lucky, you might cross paths with someone carrying laudanum, quinine, or a box of mystery pills from a traveling doctor who called himself Reverend Doctor something or other. These pills might cure you, or they might contain chalk, mercury, or crushed beetles. Still, people took them, because anything was better than nothing, and hope was half the cure anyway. Out here, you didn't get better, you got lucky. Or you got used to feeling worse. There was no health insurance, just a strong constitution and a stronger liver. So wash when you can. Boil everything. Sleep away from the coughing crowd. And remember, survival isn't just about dodging bullets. It's about keeping your insides from betraying you. Let's now talk about maps. Not the elegant, folded parchment kind, full of neat labels and tidy borders. No, in the Wild West, most maps are lies printed on paper. They're either out of date, drawn by optimists, or made by someone who's never actually been west of St. Louis. Following one is like trusting a drunk to walk a straight line. It's possible, but unwise. Out here, the real map is in your head, stitched together through sweat, mistakes, and the occasional near-death encounter. You don't navigate by roads, you navigate by landmarks. A twisted pine, a crooked ridge, that rock that looks like a bear standing on its hind legs, which, incidentally, is sometimes just a bear. These features matter more than anything inked in black and white. And if you're lucky enough to find someone willing to give directions, be prepared. Western directions come in riddles. Head west till the creek splits, then follow the one that smells like sulfur. When the ground turns red, and the buzzards get noisy, turn left. It sounds like madness until you try it and realize it's better than the map you paid to bits for in town. Compass, maybe, but out here, compasses get confused. There's iron in the rocks, trickery in the wind, and a general sense that nature enjoys watching people walk in circles. Better to trust the sun. It rises in the east, sets in the west, and doesn't lie, at least not on clear days. Travel by night, only if you have a death wish. There are no lights, no signs, and no forgiveness for mistakes. A single misstep can land you in a ravine, a cactus, or the middle of someone's quiet camp who doesn't appreciate being woken up. If you must ride at night, listen more than you look. Sound carries farther in the dark, and sometimes the things that go bump in the night are just coyotes. Other times, they're not. If you ask a local for help, pay attention to what they don't say. If they hesitate, scratch their neck, or repeat themselves, they're either hiding something or protecting you from something. A shortcut might lead through territory claimed by bandits, or worse, claimed by nature herself. There are places out here where even the birds go silent, and even the bravest riders pretend not to see the bones. So you learn to trust your horse. They'll smell danger before you do. They'll refuse to go down trails you thought were fine. Let them lead sometimes. You're not the only one who wants to make it out alive. In the West, your path is never just about the ground beneath you. It's about the choices you make, the people you avoid, and the places you feel something in your gut say, not today. Out here, your map isn't what you carry, it's what you remember. And forgetting the wrong detail can cost you more than just your direction. Let's shift gears and talk about food, not the hearty, romanticized meals from storybooks, but the kind that keeps you alive by the slimmest of margins. Meals in the Wild West aren't about flavor. They're about fuel, storage, and surviving another day without losing a tooth to stale bread. The typical cowboy diet can be summed up in 3 words: beans, biscuits, and regret. Beans come in sacks and feed many. Biscuits are more brick than bread, meant to last through a sandstorm and still bruise your gums. Meat is a luxury, and when you find it, it's probably jerky, tougher than saddle leather, and twice as salty. Salt, in fact, is the most important seasoning, not for taste, but for survival. It keeps food from spoiling and makes even questionable stew slightly less terrifying. You'll learn to eat things, not because they're good, but because they're warm, or not moving, or someone swore it tastes better than it looks. It never does. Breakfast might be sourdough and coffee. Real coffee, if you're lucky. Burnt acorns, if you're not. Sometimes it's just hot water and imagination. If you're with a wagon train, you'll get stew, mystery meat, onions, and a consistency somewhere between soup and paste. If you're on your own, a cold biscuit and a dried apple are a feast. Cooking over an open fire sounds romantic until the wind picks up and your only pan flips into the flames. You'll learn to guard your food like it's gold. Coyotes, snakes, and desperate men all share the same appetite out here. Nothing smells like an invitation quite like stew on a windless night. And then there's hardtack, a biscuit in theory, a weapon in practice. You don't eat it, you soften it in water, stew, or your own tears. Left too long in the saddlebag, it becomes fossilized. Some say it was originally invented to feed soldiers. Others say it was designed to punish them. Either way, it's not a food, it's an endurance test. If you're smart, you'll trade, forage, and plan. Wild berries are risky but tempting. Mushrooms, best left to those who don't value their liver. And whatever you do, don't trust any wild root a stranger swears by unless you've seen him eat it and survive for at least 3 days. In town, food gets fancier, but not safer. Fried pork might be last week's beef. That pie might contain more surprise than fruit. And never, ever trust the chili if the cook won't make eye contact. You don't eat to enjoy out here. You eat to endure. Every crumb you pack, every bite you take, is a small act of rebellion against a land that wants to drain your strength and leave you hollow. So chew slow, swallow fast, and say thanks, because if your stomach's full, you've already beaten the odds. Let's talk about water, not just any water, drinkable water, because in the Wild West, thirst isn't just discomfort, it's danger with a dry throat. You may not fear a man with a gun, but fear the day you find yourself rationing a muddy canteen under a punishing sun. Out here, water is currency. It determines where towns are built, where trails are blazed, and who lives to ride another day. You'll hear stories of folks who struck gold and still died broke because they couldn't find a spring within 100 miles. A man can go weeks without a real bath, but 3 days without water, and even the toughest outlaw starts seeing mirages that whisper bad ideas. You'll learn quickly to scan the land with thirsty eyes. Creeks are blessings, but they dry up fast. Rain, rare and unreliable. You'll wish for it until it comes all at once and floods your camp while your hat collects more water than your flask. The trick is learning where water hides. South-facing slopes are dry and mean. North-facing slopes hold more secrets. Cattle trails often lead to watering holes. Just make sure the cattle aren't currently occupying them, or you might get trampled in your quest for hydration. You'll come to appreciate things Eastern folks never think twice about: a dewy leaf, the cool mud at the base of a shaded ravine. Out here, nature doesn't offer you anything. You have to earn it or outsmart it. And then there's the matter of water quality. Just because it's wet doesn't mean it's safe. Stagnant water can hold more death than life. Watch for bugs, odd smells, and anything floating that looks like it once had opinions. If the water is too still, too green, or too quiet, walk on. Boiling helps, but only if you've got time and firewood. If not, strain it through cloth. Pray to whatever desert gods are listening and sip slow. Out here, gut trouble can be worse than a bullet. At least with bullets, you usually know who to blame. Canteens are sacred. Keep them clean, keep them sealed, and never let anyone drink from yours unless you're willing to die together. Sharing water is more intimate than shaking hands or sharing a bed. It means trust. It means survival. It means you've already decided that if there's only enough for one, you'll both go thirsty together. There are places in the West where water whispers, where it hides behind rocks and beneath cracked earth. And if you learn to find it, to read the land, and listen with your whole body, you might just live long enough to taste it. Sooner or later, your journey through the West will bring you face to face with the law. Not the kind that wears a robe and quotes statutes. No, this law wears spurs, carries a badge, and makes justice up as it goes. Because out here, law and order aren't always the same thing. The sheriff is often the only thing standing between a town and chaos, but don't mistake him for a hero. Some are noble, others are tired, and more than a few are just the meanest man in town who got handed a badge instead of a noose. The badge doesn't guarantee fairness. It guarantees that if something needs shooting, it'll be done officially. Deputies come and go like wind. Sometimes they're local boys trying to do good. Sometimes they're reformed outlaws trying not to relapse. Most are underpaid, overstretched, and aware that their next shift might involve breaking up a brawl between two men named Buck and Buck. And then there are the marshals, federal muscles sent west to enforce rules written by men who've never seen a dust storm or a stampede. They ride in clean, leave dirty, and usually don't stay long enough to learn anyone's name. If you see a marshal in town, either something bad already happened or something worse is coming. But the real law out here, it's social, unspoken, built on glances, gestures, and the understanding that your actions carry weight. A man who cheats at cards gets remembered. A man who hurts women or children gets dealt with quietly, efficiently, and permanently. Vigilante justice may not be legal, but it's popular and fast. Jails are often a single room with iron bars and termites. The locks work when they feel like it. The cells are usually empty because holding a criminal assumes someone plans to feed them. More often than not, justice is served at the end of a rope under the watchful gaze of a tired town that just wants peace. And don't assume the good guy always wins. The West doesn't care about character arcs. Sometimes the villain has better aim. Sometimes the crowd cheers for whoever buys the most rounds. Survival isn't always about being right. It's about being ready. The smartest folks learn to stay just inside the lines. Not too righteous to draw attention. Not too crooked to draw heat. They tip their hats to sheriffs, but never offer too much eye contact. Because in the West, the law isn't about paperwork. It's about presence. About who has the fastest draw, the clearest voice, and the most allies when things go sideways. So when you ride into town, know where the jail is, know who's wearing the badge, and know when to keep walking before law turns into legend, and legend turns into a bullet with your name on it. Let's say you followed every rule, kept your head down, and made it this far without landing in jail or a shallow grave. You're thinking, maybe now's the time to settle down. Find a patch of land, a roof over your head, and something resembling peace. Well, good luck. Because building a life in the Wild West is less like planting roots and more like digging a trench and hoping nothing floods it. First comes the land. The government offered homesteads, free plots if you worked the soil, built a home, and didn't die for 5 years. Sounds simple until you realize that land in the West doesn't like being tamed. It's rocky, dry, temperamental. Rain falls when you don't need it. Winds come when you've just built a fence. And every creature, from gopher to grizzly, resents your presence. You'll build your home with your own hands or with help from strangers who might turn into friends or rivals. Lumber is scarce, nails are precious, and roofs leak no matter how well you hammer. But when it's done, even if it's just a crooked shack with a tin chimney and a door that doesn't close right, it's yours, and that counts for something. Then comes farming. You'll grow crops with names you've said before but never truly understood. Wheat, corn, potatoes, droughts, pests, and wandering livestock can ruin months of labor in a single bad afternoon. Some settlers try livestock, cattle, pigs, chickens, each a walking investment and a potential meal, each also a target for thieves and wild animals that don't understand property lines. You'll need tools. Tools break. Tools cost money. Money means trade, or credit, or favors you'll owe until the end of your days. Every trip to town is a calculation. Do you need flour more than you need bullets? Can you afford both? Neighbors can be a blessing or a threat. They'll bring pie one day and a shotgun the next, depending on how your fences are drawn. Disputes over water, grazing rights, or a wandering pig can escalate quickly. Sometimes they're settled with words, sometimes with shovels, occasionally with lawyers, though most folks out here prefer more immediate resolutions. And don't forget the loneliness. Days pass in silence. Nights stretch endlessly, broken only by wind and worry. You'll miss people you never thought you liked. You'll talk to your horse more than your spouse. And when a stranger rides down the trail, your first instinct won't be to wave, it'll be to reach for your rifle. Settling isn't about peace, it's about persistence, about planting yourself in a land that never asked for you and proving, day after punishing day, that you deserve to stay. Now let's talk about danger, not the dramatic kind that rides in at high noon with guns blazing, but the quiet, creeping kind that waits until your guard is down. Because, in the Wild West, danger isn't just a possibility, it's the default. Start with animals, the kind you don't see in cities, or friendly postcards. Rattlesnakes blend into the dirt and strike faster than thought. One wrong step, and you'll feel fire in your leg and panic in your chest. If you're lucky, you'll have whiskey, a knife, and someone who knows the difference between bravado and first aid. If not, well, snakebite graves are shallow and unmarked. Scorpions crawl into boots. Wolves travel in packs. Mountain lions move like ghosts, and bears don't care who you are. If they want your food, your horse, or your campsite, they'll take it. You're not top of the food chain here. You're just another flavor. Then there are the elements. Heat that bakes your skin from the outside in. Cold that numbs your fingers until the coffee cup slips from your grasp. Flash floods that turn dry gullies into death traps. Dust storms that blind you, choke you, and scatter your sense of direction like cards in the wind. But the worst danger, people. Because nothing out here is more unpredictable than a man with nothing to lose. Bandits don't always wear masks. Sometimes they smile first. Sometimes they wait until you've paid for your meal and turned your back. They watch, they listen, and they strike when it costs you most. Travel alone and you're a target. Travel in a group and you're a prize. Then there are the claim jumpers, men who believe the land is theirs. If you're not around to argue, they don't file paperwork. They don't wait for titles. They bring shovels and rifles. And if you're not watching your boundary markers, your land might disappear without a shot fired. And don't overlook the gamblers, cheats, and swindlers hiding in plain sight. They'll take your money faster than a bullet, and you won't even feel the pain until it's gone. A rigged game of cards, a crooked dice throw, a deal too good to be true. It's all part of the landscape. Trust is scarce, loyalty is rare, and help comes slow if it comes at all. There's no emergency number, no cavalry over the hill. You are your own defense, your own medic, your own judge and jury. Survival isn't just about strength, it's about awareness. Who's watching? What's moving? What feels off? Danger doesn't announce itself in the West. It waits, patient like the dry creek bed, patient like the vulture circling high above, patient like the silence before everything changes. So keep your eyes open, your back to a wall, and your hand close to something sharper than words. Let's say you've lasted long enough to call yourself a survivor. You've outwitted the weather, dodged disease, avoided jail, and kept just enough distance from both lawmen and outlaws. Congratulations, you're officially a Westerner. But don't celebrate just yet, because out here, peace has a way of drawing trouble. Take boredom, for instance. In a land so wild, boredom becomes its own kind of hazard. It creeps in during long stretches of stillness, when the fire crackles too softly and the stars feel too close. You'll start thinking, always a dangerous thing in the West. You'll think about the life you left behind, about letters that never came, about choices that echo louder in silence than they ever did in the noise. Some folks handle it by gambling, not for money, but for distraction. Dice games, card tables, bets on horses, shooting contests, anything to make the hours move faster. But every game is an invitation to pride, and pride in the West is a fuse waiting to be lit. One bad hand and a man loses more than his stake. He loses his temper, his friends, maybe even his place in town. Others turn to the bottle. Whiskey flows like water where water won't. It numbs, it blurs, it silences the parts of you that whisper things best left unheard. But the bottle's a liar. It tells you you're tougher than you are, braver than you feel. And when it runs dry, it leaves behind a headache and a reputation you didn't mean to make. Still others try to create comfort. Music, books, scraps of poetry folded in saddlebags, a fiddle tune played to an empty prairie, a dog-eared novel passed between calloused hands. These aren't luxuries, they're survival tools, because sometimes the only way to stay human in the Wild West is to remember what makes you more than just a heartbeat in a harsh land. Romance blooms too in unlikely places. A schoolteacher with a past, a ranch hand with kind eyes, glances across dusty streets, notes tucked into saddlebags. Love in the West is fast, fierce, and fragile. A stolen moment in a world that offers no guarantees. Marriage happens in a blink. So does abandonment, both often sealed with a look instead of words. Even joy looks different out here. It's found in the small victories. A rainstorm when the crops are thirsty. A horse that comes when called. A letter from home that survived the miles. Joy isn't loud, it's quiet and hard-earned. And when it shows up, you don't question it. You hold on to it, because it might not come again for a long, long time. Out here, peace isn't the absence of trouble. It's the brief pause between trials. A breath before the wind shifts. A moment of stillness in a world that rarely offers it. Enjoy it, but don't trust it. If you're still here, still breathing and listening, then you've seen enough of the West to know it's not just a place, it's a test. And no test out here is quite like a journey. Not the little rides between towns. No, we're talking about the big ones. The kind that take you over mountains, across deserts, and through days that blur into each other like dust in the wind. Travel in the Wild West is not a luxury, it's a necessity and a gamble. Whether you're chasing work, escaping trouble, delivering goods, or just following something that might be hope, you'll need to understand how to move through a landscape that has no patience for mistakes. Start with your gear. Travel light, but smart. A good rifle, a sharp knife, a length of rope, and a blanket. Don't forget your hat. It'll block sun, catch rain, swat flies, and occasionally carry water. Your boots better be broken in, because blisters out here aren't just painful, they're crippling. Then there's your horse. If you're lucky enough to have one, treat it better than you treat yourself. A good horse isn't just transport, it's your legs, your lungs, your lifeline. Learn to read its body, its pace, its fears. If it refuses a path, listen. Horses know things. Sometimes things you'd rather not believe. The trail itself is never as straight as it looks on a map. It climbs when you're tired and descends when you're sore. It disappears without warning, forks when your compass fails, and tests your resolve every step of the way. You'll cross rivers that don't like to be crossed, sleep in gullies where something's always watching, and wake up unsure if the sounds in the night were coyotes or worse. You'll learn to ration food, to measure water by drops, to fix broken tack with pieces of your own clothing. You'll learn that traveling in silence can be safer than singing, and that sometimes the best camp is the one nobody else can find. But maybe the hardest part of the journey is the isolation. Days can pass without a single voice. You'll talk to your horse, your gear, even the sky. You'll replay memories like songs, over and over, until they wear smooth in your mind. And if you're not careful, loneliness can start to feel like a companion instead of a condition. Yet, for all its hardship, travel in the West is where people find something they didn't know they'd lost. Maybe it's resolve, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's the quiet realization that survival isn't just about reaching your destination. It's about who you are when you get there. So, saddle up, tighten your cinch, and ride into the horizon, knowing full well it might never end. But out here, the going is the goal. As your boots wear thin and your eyes sharpen from squinting against the sun, you start to realize that out here, survival isn't just about instincts, it's about reputation. In the Wild West, your name travels faster than your horse ever could. What people think about you often matters more than who you really are. Word of mouth is the telegraph of the frontier. A story told in Dodge City finds its way to Tombstone within a week, usually distorted just enough to make you sound more dangerous or more foolish than the truth. Maybe you helped stop a bar fight. A week later, you're the man who took down 4 drunks with a spoon. Or maybe you lost your hat in a river, and it became he ran from a coyote, naked as the day he was born. Folks believe what they want to believe, and sometimes that works in your favor. If people think you're quick with a gun, they might never test you. If they believe you're mad, they'll keep their distance. But if word gets around that you're soft, or worse, lucky, you might find yourself with more trouble than your revolver can solve. And then there are the aliases. Most folks in the West are running from something. A past, a debt, a lawman, a lover. Names are flexible. Today you're Tom Carter. Tomorrow you're Dusty Bill or One-Eyed Jake, depending on what story needs telling. No one asks too many questions, because everyone has questions they'd rather not answer. But make no mistake, your real reputation comes from how you act when no one's looking. Do you share your fire with a stranger? Do you stand your ground in a showdown? Do you help dig a grave for someone who didn't make it? People remember those things, even if they never say so. Saloon talk is where reputations are built or broken. One loose-lipped gambler can paint you a villain or a hero before you've even finished your drink. That's why some cowboys drink quiet, some don't drink at all, and the wise ones never correct a flattering rumor. In the West, myth is more powerful than honesty. Just be careful. A reputation's like a loaded gun. It can protect you or blow up in your face. If you let it get too big, people will want to test it. If you let it slip, they'll step on it. Balance is the trick. Enough danger to keep the wolves at bay, enough decency to be welcome around a fire. So keep your name steady, your stories consistent, and your back to the wall. Because the Wild West doesn't write things down. It remembers through whispers, glances, and scars. And in a land where the truth rides slower than rumor, sometimes survival means playing the legend just well enough to stay alive. Eventually, you'll come across one of the great temptations of the West: gold. Not metaphorical gold, but real, glinting, dust-covered hope. It's the thing that sent thousands westward with nothing but a pickaxe and a dream. And it's the thing that left just as many broken, bitter, and buried in forgotten hills. Gold fever changes men. A calm farmer turns into a greedy prospector. A preacher turns into a claim jumper. And towns, they bloom overnight like desert flowers, bright, bustling, and doomed to wither as fast as they came. Mining camps were rougher than cattle drives and filthier than trail dust. Tents flapping in wind, pans clinking in rivers, men sleeping on dirt, dreaming of fortune, waking to blisters and backaches. A good day meant a few flakes. A great day, maybe a nugget the size of a thumbnail, enough to make your heart race and your tongue get loose. But the deeper you dug, the more it cost you. Tools broke, mules died, and sometimes the mountain just didn't want to share. You could work a claim for weeks, find nothing, and still believe that just one more foot down, the earth would change its mind. And if you did strike it rich, that was the real trouble. Suddenly, every stranger was your friend. Every saloon girl called you handsome. Every card game turned just a little suspicious. You'd spend your winnings before sundown and wake up the next morning with an empty pouch and a headache shaped like betrayal. Then there were the claim disputes, arguments over whose line was where, whose pan touched the creek first. Some settled it with fists, others used rifles. A few wrote to lawyers back east, but most didn't live long enough to hear the verdict. Women weren't immune to gold fever either. Some came west with husbands, others alone. Some worked as cooks, laundresses, or storekeepers, slowly stacking coins while the men chased illusions. More than one woman left a boomtown with more savings than the loudest prospector ever dug up. And for every gold camp that made headlines, there were 10 that didn't. Ghost towns now, boards rotting, signs hanging crooked, wind echoing through buildings that once held laughter, gunfire, and the sound of boots pacing with restless hope. Gold out here is a promise and a curse. It gives just enough to keep you digging, just little enough to keep you desperate. The smartest folks know when to walk away. The others, they die rich in dreams and poor in everything else. So if you ever find yourself staring into a pan, watching the sunlight catch something shiny, ask yourself, is this fortune or just another trap? Because in the Wild West, not every treasure glitters, and not every man who finds gold lives long enough to spend it. As the days blur into weeks and the West becomes less of a place and more of a rhythm, you'll start to notice something strange. Time doesn't move the same way out here. It stretches, warps, disappears. One sunrise blends into another, and soon you can't remember what month it is, let alone the day. That's the Wild West's secret. It erases the edges of things. In the cities back east, time is measured in schedules and bells. But out here, it's marked by the sound of hooves, the depth of shadows, the tilt of the sun. You eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, work until something breaks, your tool, your spirit, or the sun itself. Holidays don't matter. Birthdays get forgotten. The only real calendar is the season. Spring brings floods and planting. Summer, dust and biting flies. Autumn, harvests and long shadows. Winter is a test of everything you've stored, built, and prepared. Fail, and no one comes to help. Out here, December doesn't bring cheer. It brings wind that cuts through bone and silence so deep it makes your heartbeat sound like thunder. Age is another strange thing. You meet a cowboy who says he's 30 and looks 50, or an old woman with lines on her face that tell more stories than any book. Living hard in a hard land adds years in ways no clock can measure. Out here, age is about experience, not candles. You might ride into a town one day and feel like time stopped there decades ago. A saloon that hasn't changed since Lincoln was president. A store that still sells bullets beside bacon. A schoolhouse with a cracked bell and kids learning to write with chalk on slate. And while the world changes elsewhere, railroads crisscrossing continents, telegraphs tapping out news in minutes, the West hangs on to its own kind of stillness. Technology moves in slowly, dragging progress behind it like a heavy wagon. But even when it arrives, it doesn't erase the old ways. It just layers them. That's why memories last longer out here. A single event, one showdown, one lost love, one thunderstorm, can echo for years in the minds of those who witnessed it. Stories aren't just told. They're retold, reshaped, and eventually reborn as legend. And in a place where the future feels uncertain, the past becomes something sacred. Time in the Wild West isn't about clocks. It's about survival. It's about the way a single moment can stretch forever when a rifle's raised or a loved one doesn't return. It's the way a campfire flickers like memory, brief, bright, and then gone. So you learn not to count the days. You measure the journey by scars, sunsets, and the sound of distant coyotes, reminding you that no matter how long you stay, the West was here before you, and it'll be here after. As your story nears its close, there's one more thing you need to understand if you hope to survive the Wild West. Not just how to shoot, ride, or endure, but how to leave. Because nobody stays forever. Some leave in wagons, their dreams packed away with cracked dishes and half-finished journals. They move back east or head farther west, chasing rumors of greener pastures, kinder weather, or just a second chance. Others leave on foot, their boots worn thin, their names whispered in saloons long after their trails gone cold. And some don't leave at all. Boot Hill cemeteries dot the frontier, quiet plots on windy ridges where wooden crosses tilt in the sun and names are carved by shaky hands. Here lies Jake, shot in the back. Mary, beloved wife, unknown, died hard. These aren't just graves. They're punctuation marks on unfinished stories. Each one a reminder that the West is generous with challenge and stingy with mercy. But not every departure is physical. Some leave in spirit. The West can change you, harden your voice, soften your heart, break things inside you that never quite mend. You may find that the person you were when you arrived doesn't fit the saddle anymore. You've seen too much, endured too long. You've become someone else, someone leaner, quieter, more watchful. And if you're lucky, very lucky, you'll live long enough to choose your own ending. You might open a dry goods store in a sleepy town, selling nails and coffee to people chasing their own dreams. Maybe you become a blacksmith, pounding out horseshoes and stories, or a school teacher, raising the next generation to believe in things like rules and books. Some become lawmen, trading the wild for the weight of justice. Others retire to porches and watch the sun fall behind the hills, rocking slow and remembering faster days. A few write it all down, names, places, regrets, and send their memories eastward in letters that sound more like fiction than fact. But whether you leave in glory, in silence, or in a pine box, one truth remains. The West changes you. It teaches you how little you need, how much you can endure, and how far you're willing to go for a shot at freedom, a taste of peace, or a sliver of land to call your own. So when the time comes to ride out one last time, tip your hat to the land, thank your horse, nod to the horizon, and ride steady. Because out here, every ending is just a different kind of survival. And those who last long enough to leave on their own terms, they've already won. Now that you've walked through dust, dodged bullets, watched seasons shift, and learned what it takes to survive the Wild West, there's one last thing you need to hear, something most guides won't tell you. It's not about how to ride, or shoot, or endure. It's about why any of it matters. Because at the heart of this hard land isn't just struggle, it's meaning. You see, the Wild West is more than danger, dust, and distance. It's a forge. It burns away pretense, strips down what doesn't matter, reveals what's left when you're hungry, scared, or alone. And what's left is who you really are. That's why so many people came here, not just for gold, land, or cattle, but for a chance to meet themselves, to start over, to prove that whatever life had taken from them back east, they could win it back out here, one blistered hand and one stubborn sunrise at a time. Some failed, many did, but those who didn't weren't the strongest, the smartest, or the best shot. They were the ones who could endure, who could look fear in the eye, then roll up their sleeves and get back to work. And endurance is its own kind of glory. It doesn't make headlines, it doesn't sing songs, but it's what built the towns, the railroads, the quiet cemeteries, and the louder legends. Every saloon, schoolhouse, and barn is a monument to someone who just kept going. That's what you've learned, haven't you? You've discovered that being brave doesn't mean being unafraid. It means saddling up anyway. That freedom isn't found in the absence of rules, but in the ability to choose your own. That silence isn't loneliness, it's clarity. And that home isn't a place. It's a feeling you build with calloused hands and quiet rituals. And maybe most of all, you've learned to listen to the wind through canyon rocks, to the creak of your saddle before dawn, to the silence after a hard day's ride. Out here, listening is how you stay alive, and how you remember you're not alone. So if you've made it this far, you're no longer just surviving. You're part of the story now, a thread in the dusty, frayed tapestry of the West. Your footprints join those of the millions who passed before, dreamers, builders, wanderers, thieves, saints. They all came here chasing something. Some found it, some didn't, but all of them, like you, left a mark. So sit by the fire a moment longer. Let the flames dance in your eyes. And remember, this isn't just history, it's a mirror. And what you see staring back is someone who made it. Now that your journey through the Wild West has reached its final stretch, take a moment to reflect, not on the bullets dodged or the trails conquered, but on the quiet truths uncovered along the way. Because at its core, the West isn't just a chapter in history, it's a state of mind. A world where survival and serenity walk the same trail, and where hardship shapes not just the land, but the soul. You've learned how to ride with one eye on the horizon and one hand near your holster. You've learned to read the clouds, the terrain, and the expressions of strangers. You've slept under stars so bright they made your dreams feel like echoes of something ancient. And you've endured more than you ever thought you could. But now, as twilight falls on this dusty odyssey, we turn our gaze inward, because maybe the real lesson of the West isn't how to shoot straight or build a cabin. It's how to be alone with yourself and not flinch. It's how to face vast open silence and realize you are enough to fill it, that you carry your worth not in gold or cattle or land, but in how you walk through this rough world with integrity, grit, and grace. This land humbles you. It reminds you that control is an illusion and that nature, untamed and indifferent, will always have the final say. It teaches you that people can be unpredictable, but kindness, when found, is more valuable than any claim or coin. It urges you to listen more than speak, to act more than boast, and to respect more than judge. And maybe, just maybe, that's the West's quiet legacy, not just a place of danger, but a forge for something better. A testing ground where you shed what's false and emerge with a spine like leather and a heart that still knows how to feel. As the fire dies down and the wind picks up, you look around one last time. The world hasn't changed. The hills still roll, the stars still burn, but you have changed. You're not just a traveler anymore. You're a survivor, a listener, a quiet witness to a time and place that demanded everything and gave little in return, but left you with stories no one can ever take. Now, gather your reins. One more trail awaits. The fire has faded, the saddle is worn, and the stories have all been told, almost before the final curtain falls on your time in the Wild West. There's one last scene to pass through, the ride into the unknown. You've heard it before in every dime novel, every whispered tale across a saloon table. He rode off into the sunset. A neat ending, soft on the imagination. But in truth, that ride is never just an exit. It's a beginning, a new question, a next chapter no one gets to read but you. What lies beyond the next hill? A ranch of your own, a town with your name whispered in admiration or caution, a chance at redemption, or maybe, finally, a place to hang your hat for good. The West doesn't promise closure. It offers something better, the space to write your own ending. You could become the quiet old-timer everyone visits for advice, sitting under a porch awning with a pipe and 1,000-yard stare. Or maybe you ride a little further and become a myth yourself, a name spoken in barroom arguments, a silhouette against the evening sky, the kind of figure who might have existed or might have been made up to keep kids dreaming. And the truth is, it doesn't matter, because legend and life are closer than most people think. Out here, stories are born from truth and shaped by dust and distance. If someone remembers your kindness, your courage, or even your stubborn silence, you've carved your name into something no storm can erase. So, as your horse moves at a gentle gait through the final stretch, look around. That windmill creaking in the distance. It's been turning since before you arrived. That cactus, half bloomed and weathered, still reaching for the sun. That raven gliding overhead, watching with knowing eyes. Everything continues, and so will you. Whether your trail leads to another town, a warm hearth, or simply deeper into the wilderness, you've earned your place among those who came before. The drifters, the settlers, the loners, the lovers, the ones who dared to meet the land on its terms and came out scarred, stronger, and maybe, just maybe, wiser. The Wild West never really ends. It just waits for the next traveler, the next soul who thinks they're passing through, but finds themselves remade by sun, grit, silence, and stars. And when night falls, quiet, deep, endless, you won't be afraid, because you've ridden the ridges, you've crossed the deserts, you've sat by the fire and faced yourself in the flickering dark. You're part of the West now, not just as a visitor, but as a story. So here we are, the end of the trail. You've followed the winding path through dusty towns, high plains, lonely canyons, and open skies. You've weathered bandits, storms, silence, and the long, aching stretch of time itself. You've survived the Wild West, not just by grit, but by understanding its rhythms. And now, as the sun finally dips low behind the mountains, there's nothing left to do but rest. But before you do, take a moment, breathe deep, smell the smoke still clinging to your coat, feel the weight of your boots after miles on hardened ground. Listen, not just to the coyotes calling out beyond the ridge, but to the quiet within you. That stillness, that's the reward. It's not gold or glory or land. It's the peace that comes after you've earned your place in the dust. Somewhere, a new town is being built. A child learns to ride. A stranger scans the horizon, dreaming of the West. The story continues, always, but your chapter is written now, etched in the silence between stars, where only those who've lived the hard miles can read it. You came seeking adventure, or maybe escape. You found something harder and better. You found clarity in the chaos, strength, beauty in the barren, and in the end, you found something deeper than survival. You found yourself, because to last in the Wild West, you had to become more than a name. You had to become part of the land. And now, even if you never ride again, a piece of that land rides with you. So let your eyes close slowly. Let the saddle creak one final time as you dismount. Let the fire die out without tending. There's no need to keep watch now. You've earned the right to rest. And if you ever return to this place, in memory, in story, or in sleep, you'll know your way by heart. Before we part ways, one last whisper in the night. If you've enjoyed this long, quiet journey through the dust and dusk of forgotten lands, we invite you to subscribe to Medieval Nocturnes. Our stories wander softly through time, uncovering the corners of history that are best listened to by lamplight and remembered in dreams. We tell the tales that time almost forgot, the ones that don't shout but hum. So wherever your trail leads next, through forests, kingdoms, or empires of sand, we'll be here, waiting with another quiet fire, another worn saddle, another story to send you gently into sleep. Good night, traveler. The West remembers you.